You know, it's amazing the number of things that have become obsolete due to our new phones. This is the iPhone 14 Pro Max or whatever. And with this phone, GPSs are no longer a thing. Most kids don't even know what they are. A Walkman, good luck with one of those. So many devices now have been shrunk into a phone that can fit in our hands. Well, one thing that's on life support is a point and shoot camera. Cameras have gotten so good in these phones that what's the need to have a separate camera that you have to carry? Well, for the most part, the answer is you don't. Unless you're looking at something like the Fuji X100V. Now, it's pretty funny, I'm doing a review on this years and years after it came out. This shows you how good of a camera it really is. It has the classic style that everyone loves. It looks like an old 35mm camera. It has a fantastic flash. It just almost always captures it correctly, no matter the light. Sometimes you just play around with it a little bit, but for the most part, it's the best flash you can get on a camera. It takes stunning photos that are fully saturated with just the right amount of bokeh, sharpness. It's just a fantastic camera. So let's take a little closer look at the Fujifilm X100V. First of all, I've got a UV filter on it, which I really do recommend. You pull that off. This is a great way to keep your lens from getting scratched and dirty, because you really don't want your lens to be scratched. So it has a 23mm lens, which is equivalent to about a 35mm, which is a great kind of, if you're going to have a fixed length lens, that's a pretty good option. Because what it does is it's wide enough to get you decent landscape pictures, but it's also has a big enough sensor that if you need to, you can crop down your photo and get a more narrow field of view. So one thing about the camera that is important is it does have a tendency to flare and ghost. So if you get the optional hood for your camera, like that, it will greatly reduce the ghosting that you see. The downside is, man, this hood is pretty expensive. And also, your lens cap, it no longer fits. So you'd have to take that back off and then put your lens cap back on. So we're going to remove this again, put back on our UV filter, and have at it. So we turn on the camera. The camera is just a pleasure, actually, to meter. So you can see your metering right there. So you can change out your shutter speed, and then on the front you have a dial right here in order to set your f-stop. And again, I really love this dial because it's a great clean mechanism. It works well, and it actually kind of has a satisfying click on each one of the stops. So when you're not able to look at it, you can feel those stops as you go through them. The other thing that's a beauty of this camera is that it has a fantastic flash. So whenever you need a flash, you just go into your menu. You go to your flash setting, and I usually do it in manual. And you just set it, and you roll your dice through, or I'm sorry, the dial through, and you set what flash setting you actually want on the camera. And it does a great job for fill. So you set it, and you back out. And again, the menus on this camera are as good as anything you will find. So your image quality right here. I usually do RAW, and then I edit my photos on Lightroom Pro, or Lightroom Pro. And again, you can go through pretty easily. The other thing that you would want to do, and I typically just leave it on auto for a white balance. The camera does a great job identifying the white balance for each mode. Another thing that I really enjoy, we'll see if we can get it in the camera, is the simulated screen inside. You can't really see it there. But the viewfinder within the camera actually mimics what you see on the film, or when you actually take a picture on the screen. So it does a great job that you don't even really have to necessarily meter directly. Now I have had an issue with other Fuji X100 cameras where I had a little black plate fall in front of it and it wouldn't work anymore. So this is actually the third X100 camera I've had. I had the X100T, the X100F, and now finally the X100V. So you have a little red dial here with knob, and that lets you alter between the type of viewfinder you have, whether it's digital or electronic. So there's a lot to like about the Fujifilm X100V. What are some of the drawbacks? So if there's a drawback to the Fuji X100V, it's that it really doesn't do a great job for video. I mean, it will take video in a pinch, but honestly, if I find myself with just the X100V in my phone, I take the video with the phone. It's just easier to handle, it's a lot quicker, and it just does a better job. So if you're looking for something primarily for video, well, this isn't a great camera for that. It's not terrible, but it's not the best. You're probably going to be better off with just using your smartphone. That's not a knock on the camera because the image quality of the X100V is far superior to what you're going to get with your iPhone. Now, how does that work? Well, in multiple ways. One, low light performance. Your iPhone and equivalent, they're just not going to do as well in an indoor setting. The flash isn't quite as good. The quality, the saturation, the crispness, the sharpness, it's just not the same. Also, when you want to crop the photo, that's where the larger sensor that you have in the Fujifilm X100V really comes in handy. You can crop into your photo, zoom way in, and not lose your edge retention, not have all the noise you might have with a camera phone. There's nothing worse than trying to block somebody out or crop a photo that you've taken with your camera and realize, hey, if I do that, then the eyes and things are going to look like a Monet, right? Okay, so we talked about Lightroom Pro, so let's actually show you how this works in Lightroom Pro. The beauty of the Fuji is that it's older now, so you have all the profiles already in Lightroom. So let's just take a few different photos, some that are dark, some that are a little bit brighter, and see how they come out. So I'm taking 3 photos here. You might recognize this from our main channel, so just to keep you on your toes, see if you recognize any of these pictures. So this one right here, again, it uses a flash. This room was very dark, so we can go into Lightroom under Develop. And this is just a raw photo. I've done no touch-ups on it. We're going to correct the profile. So this is all from the flash, right? So that's pretty darn good. So we can go in, remove some of these shadows. It's got a bit of a haze from that flash. I'm going to dehaze it a bit. Give it a little color. And then if you go in, you can see that even though it's at ISO 2000, right? Even though there's a flash, it's at ISO 2000 right there. It's still pretty good. It's not grainy at all. So we can actually fix that photo up a little bit and have it look nice. So let's go in and denoise it a little to kind of smooth out those edges. You can sharpen it a touch. And so again, you're not going to get this kind of performance with a camera phone. There's just no way that photo is going to come out like that with the camera phone. I think that's pretty good. Okay, so that's our first photo. Let's go to photo number 2. Okay, so iconic site at the Acropolis, right? So we're going to go in and we're going to do the automatic profile corrections right there. No big deal. But if you look, again, great edge retention on it, right? So it's super sharp. And since it's a raw photo, we can adjust anything we need to. If we need to change out the white balance, which I don't think we do. I think it was at right around 5500. So we can go in, add a little more color, get a little pizzazz out of it, maybe reduce these shadows so you can see into these rocks better. Plenty of dynamic range in the camera so we can actually go into these shadows and pull out that detail. And I like to kind of give people a little bit of a wow factor, so let's make it a little bluer out there. And and then maybe even brighten it up a bit, right? So there's our Acropolis photo. Pretty cool, right? The next one is a butterfly, right? So look at all the detail right here on it. We're at ISO 1600. This is an indoor environment, right? So this is at the New York Museum of Natural History, right? So this is at 1600, and you still have all that great detail. This is not a macro lens. This is just a true, the true performance out of the lens indoors. So you can maybe denoise it a little bit. We don't want to lose that detail in the wing, right? And we can go in, maybe add a little of the texture, fill that in. I always like kind of playing around, seeing the extremes. And then maybe a little clarity. We'll bring out that color a little bit more. And especially this right here, right? You have a little pink leaf. And again, look at the bokeh in the background. Look at that blur that we have. It's just fantastic, right? So again, these are the type of things you can't do with a camera phone that you can do with the Fuji X100V. Pretty easy if you have any kind of knowledge of Lightroom Pro. The corrections are already built into it, and you can adjust it to your eyes. So again, small camera, that'll do a lot. Now, it's not the same as a Nikon D850 or D850 with the full frame sensor. It's not going to be the same as that. But honestly, it's like 90% of it. So rarely do I feel the need when I travel to grab this giant camera. Now, if I'm doing photo shoots for brands, or I'm doing like a product placement or something like that, yeah, I will use the Nikon in order to get the real incredibly crisp lines and have the highest quality photo possible. But more often than not, this little guy right here is better. It really is. I can stick it in my pocket, like when I go to New York City and we do street photography. I don't have a camera. It definitely beats this, right? So it's like, oh, hold on, I'm trying to take a picture. Everybody sees it and they think, hey, that's a pretty expensive camera. I might want to steal that. Fuji, pop it out. One thing I didn't talk about, super fast focusing. Focus, shoot, on my way. And they're thinking, oh, that poor guy, he can't even afford a brand new iPhone. He's got that old looking point and shoot camera from 1997 or 2003 or whatever. They're not, it's very unassuming. However, I've also had a Leica Q2, which is roughly almost 3 times the cost of this Fuji. And I actually preferred the photos coming out of the Fuji more than the Leica Q2. That's the fact. And it's smaller, better form factor, built-in flash, third the price. What's not to love? So for me, even though this is kind of old now, and there is rumors that there will be a new X100 camera coming out in the next year or so, maybe, the X100V is still, for my money, the best point-and-shoot camera on the market by quite a bit. It's definitely plugged in, and if you can find one, man, have at it. Have a great day.